Lately, I've been getting a lot of questions about irrevocable trusts. So I said, let me do a video to explain all about irrevocable trust. So we're going to go through what are the pros, what are the cons, and what exactly is an irrevocable trust in the first place. So first, the irrevocable trust is a trust. It is a contract between the creator of the trust, which is called the grantor or the trustor, and the trustee, which is the person who's going to manage and run and control the trust, and then the beneficiaries, those who are going to benefit from the trust. So with an irrevocable trust, you are essentially relinquishing control to your trustee. You cannot be the trustee. The creator of the trust cannot be the trustee of the irrevocable trust, meaning you are not going to be able to control and manage that trust. Why? Because the law basically states that you cannot have the best of both worlds. You cannot have protection, which we'll get into, and also control. In some states, you can have both, but we're going to talk generally. With the irrevocable trust, you, the creator, generally cannot be the trustee. That's across the board. And so someone else will be controlling and managing that trust for you. And so when this trust is created, it is not easily revoked. You cannot just say, okay, I changed my mind. I do not want this anymore, right? You have to sort of have the beneficiaries, those who are going to benefit, will have to consent to changes in most cases. So that's why it's called irrevocable, because it's not easy to change and it's not easy to revoke. Now let's get into the pros and the cons. So the first pro is asset protection. So an irrevocable trust typically assists you with wealth preservation, safeguarding your wealth, because whatever assets you put into it generally cannot be accessed by your creditors or those who are seeking to enforce a judgment against you. So it gives you an extra layer of protection because it is essentially taking those assets outside of your ownership, outside of your estate, we call it, which is everything that you essentially own of value. It's taking it outside of your estate and it's owned by this separate entity, which is your irrevocable trust. So that's why it offers you asset protection, because those who are looking to enforce judgments and claims against you cannot have access to it generally. There are some, caveats there, but generally that is how it works. The second pro is estate tax reduction. So an irrevocable trust can help you to lower your estate tax if you fall into the bracket of someone who will have to pay an estate tax. So there is an estate tax threshold on the federal level and typically the state level. Some states don't have an estate tax, many do, but there's always an estate tax on the federal level. So it depends where you fall in that range. If you're going to need to pay an estate tax or not need to pay an estate tax, you need to work with a professional to sort of determine, what your estate tax responsibility might be. And doing your estate plan with an irrevocable trust can help you to minimize, reduce, or altogether get rid of that estate tax if it applies to you. The third pro is Medicaid planning. If you're someone who is seeking to qualify for Medicaid, having an irrevocable trust can help you to qualify by reducing the amount of assets that you have in order to qualify for Medicaid. So there are also other ways that you can plan for long-term care, which is what Medicaid essentially is. As you get older, you might need someone to come to your home. You might need to go into a nursing home or anything of that sort. There are other ways to plan for that with insurance, but sometimes people age out and they're not able to get insurance and they want to sort of salvage some of the assets that they have for whatever reason that is. And so an irrevocable trust could be a good vehicle for Medicaid planning. And the last pro for the purpose of this video is it avoids probate. So it also is, because of the fact that it's a trust, it does allow your loved ones to avoid having to go to court to probate your estate with the court, which costs money, time, energy. And so it avoids that whole probate process and allows for a smooth transition and management of your assets of your estate. Now let's get into the cons. So the first con is loss of control. And this is one of the things that people have to decide whether or not they're wanting to do an irrevocable trust, because you cannot be the trustee. You do not have control. So you have to pick a third party to be the trustee during your lifetime. It could be an individual, it could be a company, a firm, what have you. to be the trustee of that trust and manage and control. So it cannot be you, right? And so that, in that sense, you lose a level of control because now you're separated, you're removed, you essentially can only benefit from that trust based upon the language and the rules and the directions that are in the trust. And so the long and short of it is diminished, reduced control over your assets. The second con with an irrevocable trust is the complexity of it. So it's more complex than dealing with a revocable trust. You have to make sure that you are not basically violating the rules, that you are not causing yourself additional tax burden if you are, doing things in a way that violates how the trust is set up. So there's much more record keeping, rule following, and complexity in general of just managing an irrevocable trust. The third con of an irrevocable trust is the difficulty in making changes to the trust, if you can at all. Essentially, whoever is your beneficiary is going to need to consent and agree to these changes. So say you decide you do not want a beneficiary to any longer be the beneficiary of the trust, well, that beneficiary will need to consent. So that might present a problem. So you want to be certain. It's not something you want to do in haste. You want to be certain about the decisions you're making concerning your irrevocable trust. And lastly is the tax implications. That is the fourth con of an irrevocable trust. Irrevocable trusts tend to have higher tax rates than individuals or your standard revocable trust. So that is something that needs to be considered when doing an irrevocable trust. Is it worth the potential higher tax rate than having a revocable trust? So that is irrevocable trust. I hope that this was helpful for you to get a good overview of what it is and why would someone choose it. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. If you have any additional questions, I can follow up with another video. So please feel free to leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.